Most kids leave for school with a lunchbox. Lila leaves a trail of hope for a father who might never return. The city hadn't woken up yet, not really. The sun barely touched the rooftops. Car horns were still yawns, not screams. And in that tender hush of morning, where the streets stretched half asleep and cold, a little girl knelt beside a crack in the sidewalk alone. Her name was Lila. 7 years old. Brown coat 2 sizes too big. Shoes without soles that clicked unevenly when she walked. Her braids were messy, her fingers chapped. And in those fingers? 3 old coins. Tarnished, worn smooth, as if rubbed 1,000 times by worry and wish. She looked around. No one watching. That's how she preferred it. She crouched beside the narrow crack between 2 pavement slabs, just under the gleaming glass tower that reached into the sky like it didn't remember the people at its feet. One by one, she dropped the coins. Clink. 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 Each sound softer than the last. Then she closed her eyes and whispered something so quietly the wind couldn't catch it. Something only her heart and the sidewalk heard. Then she stood up, slowly, carefully, as if the ground was sacred, and walked away. Like she did every morning. Rain or frost. With quiet shoes and quieter hope. 15 stories above her, a man stood frozen, coffee untouched in his hand. Daniel Carter. Billionaire. Developer. Name on the side of the very tower beneath him. His office was pure power, glass walls, cold lines, silence that dared to be interrupted. But today, it was the silence that cracked him. He'd been watching her. Not in a way he fully understood, not at first. Just noticing. A girl. A ritual. A pause in time. For 2 weeks now, every day at exactly 7:38 a.m., she appeared. Same spot. Same gesture. Same coins. He had thought what? That she was playing? Performing? But now? Now it felt sacred. And he didn't know why, but it made his throat tighten. Back on the sidewalk, Lila walked to school like a child holding up a world that no one else could see. Her pouch of coins swung at her side. She only had 12 left. But that was okay. 12 more chances for Daddy to find her. 12 more days to believe. Because this was the spot. Right here. Where he'd last waved. Where his tired eyes had looked up, smiled, and said, "Be good, baby. I'll be right back." And then the building came. The men in suits. The moving trucks. The no loitering signs. And Daddy disappeared. They said maybe he left. Maybe he wandered off. Maybe he... No. Lila didn't let herself finish that thought. Because her heart had made a deal with that sidewalk crack. If she fed it coins, it would whisper directions to her dad. Let him find his way home. Like breadcrumbs. Not even Mama knew. She just thought Lila liked walking early. Daniel hadn't moved. Still at the window. Coffee cold now. His other hand pressed gently against the glass. He wasn't a man easily shaken. He'd faced lawsuits, deals gone wrong, entire markets collapsing. But something about that girl, the way she lowered her head. The way she whispered like someone might be listening beneath the ground. The way she looked back at the building like it had stolen something precious and wouldn't give it back. And it hit him. Hard. 5 years ago, when he bought that property, there had been complaints. A man loitering near the entrance. A veteran, security had said. Harmless, but unstable. Daniel had signed off the report without reading the rest. Now his fingers curled tightly around the cup, as if trying to hold on to something slipping away. Could it be him? Could it be her father? He made a decision without realizing it. Tomorrow, he'd go down there. Ask her. Learn her name. Because something in her silence echoed something in his own. He couldn't explain it. But somehow, that child's coins were waking up a part of him he thought had died years ago. Some children drop coins. Others drop clues if only someone cared enough to look. Daniel Carter couldn't sleep. Not because of deals or deadlines. Those used to keep him awake, churning numbers, boardroom strategies, silent spreadsheets. But tonight? It was the sound of coins. 3 faint drops over and over in his mind. Clink. 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 And a voice. Soft. Innocent. Fragile. This is where he was, before he waved goodbye. By 7:15 the next morning, Daniel was already downstairs. The doorman raised an eyebrow. He'd never seen the CEO at street level without an appointment or entourage. But Daniel just offered a nod and stepped outside. The morning was colder than yesterday. The wind carried winter's breath. But he waited, hands in his coat pockets, scanning the sidewalk like someone expecting a miracle. And there she was. Same coat. Same lopsided shoes. Same pouch. She walked with a rhythm, a quiet beat only she could hear. Her braid bobbed with each step. Daniel took a slow breath and stepped forward. "Hi," he said gently, crouching to her level. "Do you remember me?" Lila hesitated. Her fingers curled around her pouch. She didn't answer, but she didn't run either. "That spot," Daniel continued, pointing to the crack between the stones. "Why do you always come here?" She stared at it, then at him. For a moment, he thought she'd ignore the question. But then, softly, so softly, she whispered, "Because this is where my daddy disappeared." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to ask more, wanted to flood her with questions, information, apologies. But something about her stillness stopped him. So he knelt beside the crack. Looked at it like she did. "I've walked past this place 1,000 times, he said. "But I never saw this." Lila didn't speak. But she opened the pouch. 3 coins sat inside. All different sizes. All dull with time. She picked the smallest and placed it into the crack. Clink. Then stood. "That's for today." Daniel rose slowly. "What's your name?" "Lila." "And your dad?" "Tommy. Tommy Miller." Daniel's heart dropped. Again. That name. That file. That day. He dismissed it like background noise, just another piece of the past swept away in a property deal. Now the past had a face. A voice. A daughter. And she was standing right in front of him. Back in his office, Daniel couldn't focus. Spreadsheets blurred. Meetings lost meaning. The skyline felt emptier than usual. He pulled up archives. Security logs. Old emails. Anything. There it was. Dated 5 years back. Subject, loitering near entrance. Description, male, approximate 40 to 45. Possible PTSD. Former military. Removed peacefully per request. Name, Thomas Miller. His stomach turned. He hadn't just bought a building. He'd buried someone's story under it. Lila, meanwhile, walked into her classroom. The day unfolded like all the others, chalk squeaking, chairs scraping, children laughing too loudly. But she sat in the back, close to the window. Her thoughts elsewhere. She didn't know the man's name. But something about him felt different. He hadn't asked about grades or her mom. He hadn't told her to hurry up. He just knelt, looked at the ground, and listened. Like Daddy used to. She opened her notebook. Inside, she'd drawn the sidewalk crack. Carefully, line by line. Under it, 3 coins. Above it, a sentence in block letters. In case you forget, Daddy, this is where we're waiting. Daniel didn't know what to do next. He had money, power, access to entire teams of investigators. But what he didn't have, what he suddenly wished for, was a rewind button. To unsign that paper. To tell his team to wait. To walk outside that day and just ask the man his name. Instead, all he had was now. And a girl who was still waiting. The next morning, he made a decision. He called his assistant. Cancel my meetings until noon. Everything? Yes. Everything. Then he grabbed his coat, pocketed something small, and took the elevator back down, this time not to watch, but to begin making things right. 5 years ago, a man was asked to leave a sidewalk. No one asked why he was there. The security footage was grainy. Muted colors. Blinking timestamps. No sound. Daniel sat alone, replaying the same 30 seconds over and over. A man tired, unshaven, wrapped in a thin jacket, stood near the revolving doors. He wasn't begging. He wasn't yelling. He just stood. Then 2 guards approached. No struggle. Just words. Nods. A slow, reluctant walk away. Daniel watched the man glance back. Just once. As if memorizing the building behind him. And then, gone. Lila's world was smaller than most. 3 streets. 1 school. A bus stop. And that spot near the tower where Hope lived. Her teacher handed back a drawing. That's very detailed, Lila. It showed a girl. A sidewalk. A crack between stones. Coins midair. I draw it every time, she said softly. Why? So I don't forget where he was. Daniel couldn't let it go. He didn't know why this mattered so much. Or maybe he did. His father had left, too. Not in a dramatic way. Just faded. Business trips turned into months. Apologies turned into silence. Daniel had never dropped coins. He dropped expectations. Stopped waiting. Became someone no one had to wait for. Now, watching Lila, he saw what it meant to still believe in return. And it broke him a little. That afternoon, Daniel walked into a cafe near the school. He spotted Lila and her mother, seated by the window. The mother looked exhausted. Her clothes neat but faded. Her hair pulled back in a hurry. She was scribbling on a napkin numbers, maybe bills. Lila stirred her cocoa, quietly humming. Daniel hesitated, then walked in. "Hi," he said gently. The mother looked up, startled. "I'm Daniel. We met outside the tower." Lila smiled faintly. "The man from the window." Her mother blinked. "I'm sorry?" "She drops coins there," Daniel explained. "I wanted to understand." The woman's shoulders tensed. "I told her not to bother people." "She's not," Daniel said. "She's remembering someone." There was silence. Then, slowly, the mother nodded. "My husband. Tommy. He is a veteran. He struggled. We lost him 5 years ago. No trace. No call. Just gone." Daniel swallowed. "I think I might have seen him. Or had him removed." The words tasted bitter. The mother looked away. Not angry. Just tired. "He'd go there," she said. Said it helped him feel grounded. Then one day, he didn't come home. Lila spoke up. "I think the sidewalk remembers." Daniel looked at her. "Maybe it does." Back in his office, he opened a drawer. Inside, the coin he had picked up after she left that morning. It wasn't special. Not to anyone else. But to him, it felt heavier than gold. He turned it in his fingers. Then placed it on his desk. Next to it, he wrote a note. "Begin again." The next morning, something new appeared at the spot. A small brass plaque, carefully drilled into the stone. It read, "For those still trying to find their way home." Lila stopped mid-step when she saw it. She stared. Her eyes grew wide. Her breath caught. She looked around. No one nearby. Just the wind. She crouched. Ran her fingers across the engraving. Smiled. Then took out a coin and dropped it beside the plaque. Clink. This time, the sound echoed. Not in the air, but inside her. And far above, from behind his glass wall, Daniel smiled, too. She dropped coins into cracks. He dropped silence into rooms. Both were waiting to be heard. There was a time when Daniel Carter filled every room he entered. His name opened doors. His presence quieted chatter. His voice always had the last word. But now? Now he sat across from a 7-year-old girl and didn't know what to say. They were at the same cafe again. This time, Lila had invited him. She brought coloring pencils. He brought nothing. Yet somehow, she made space for him. Like she'd always expected him to show up. "Do you think coins can talk?" Lila asked. Daniel blinked. "What do you mean?" She leaned in, serious. "Not like people. I mean, maybe they whisper to sidewalks. Help Daddy here where we are." Daniel looked down. A single coin sat between them. Dull. Bent slightly on one side. "I think," he said slowly, "they say more than most people do." Lila smiled. "Me too." Outside, clouds drifted over the city. Winter was creeping closer. The wind had a bite. But something warm had begun to build between them. Not loud. Not rushed. Just steady. Daniel found himself walking past the plaque more often. Not just to check it, but to feel it. Feel what? He didn't know yet. But the sound of coins now carried meaning. He began asking questions. Not to Lila. To people. He contacted shelters. Searched records. Reopened the file no one wanted. Thomas Miller. Last seen near the Meridian Tower. Disoriented. Possibly injured. Never found. One man remembered him. A retired janitor. Said he'd seen Tommy talking to himself by the street lamp. Said he wore a military jacket. Said he looked lost and kind. Daniel wrote it all down. Then sat with it. Long after the office emptied. Lila drew pictures every night now. But they weren't just coins and cracks anymore. Now she drew 3 people. A man with a coffee cup. A girl with a braid. And someone standing in the distance, always shadowed. She titled them in neat letters. When Daddy Comes Back. Her mom didn't say much when she saw them. Just brushed her hand over Lila's head. But that touch lingered. A little longer than before. One evening, Daniel stood outside the building. Alone. No suit. No briefcase. Just him and the wind. He crouched beside the plaque. Ran his fingers over the brass. And then, from his coat pocket, pulled something out. A folded paper. Worn from being held too many times. A photograph. Black and white. Slightly blurred. Tommy Miller. In uniform. Smiling beside a young woman and baby. On the back. For when I forget who I am. Daniel stared at it. He had forgotten, too. Who he was. What mattered. Why silence wasn't strength. The next day, he gave the photo to Lila's mom. I found this, he said quietly. In the archive of the shelter 3 blocks away. She took it with shaking hands. Her lips parted, but no words came. Tears did, though. Not loud. Not messy. Just soft. And endless. Lila peeked over her mother's shoulder. That's him, she whispered. She didn't cry. She just smiled. Like she had known all along he was close. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. But it wasn't coins that kept him up. It was the way Lila had looked at the photo. Not with grief. With belief. As if every day she had waited had been worth it. As if the sidewalk had finally spoken back. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt like he belonged somewhere. Not to a tower. Not to a title. To something gentler. Quieter. And real. Sometimes, the smallest plaque on a sidewalk becomes a doorway to healing. A week had passed since Daniel gave Lila's mom the photo. It now sat framed beside their couch. Not expensive. Just wood. And care. Next to it, Lila placed her pouch of coins. She hadn't dropped one in days. Not because she had given up. But because she felt, somehow, he was getting closer. Daniel had started walking. Every evening after work, instead of his driver, he took long routes. Alone. Through neighborhoods where light flickered in windows. Past schools where backpacks hung in neat rows. Past the shelter Tommy once visited. He wasn't searching now. He was listening. Listening for stories. Footprints. Signs of someone lost who still wanted to be found. One night, he stopped outside a small diner. An older man sat inside. Military coat. Gray hair. Distant stare. Daniel stepped in. Ordered coffee. Then gently asked, "You ever known a man named Tommy Miller?" The man looked up. His eyes sharpened. "Yeah," he said slowly. "We bunked together once." "Do you know where he went?" "No," the man replied, after a pause. "But he talked about a little girl. Said she always wore 2 braids. Daniel's heart skipped. That was her. Lila began drawing again. But this time, the third figure in the background was walking closer. In each picture, he moved a little forward. A little nearer. In the final one, he stood right beside her. No words. Just 3 hands holding 1 coin together. She didn't show it to her mom. She tucked it into her school bag. Quietly. Like a secret she wasn't ready to say aloud. Daniel couldn't sit still anymore. He assigned 2 staff members to do something he never imagined asking. Not for profit, he told them. Not for headlines. Just find this man. This father. This thread that still held a little girl's hope together. Meanwhile, Lila returned to the sidewalk for the first time in a week. She didn't bring coins. She brought something else. A note. Folded 4 times. Slipped between the stones under the plaque. It read, "Daddy, if you're reading this, we didn't move. We're still waiting. I still believe." She kissed the top of the stone. And walked away. Daniel stood across the street. He didn't call her name. He didn't interrupt. Some moments aren't meant to be broken. Only remembered. The next morning, the janitor at the shelter found a man asleep by the stairs. Quiet. Thin. Holding something in his hands. It was the note. Daniel got the call within the hour. He didn't hesitate. He drove himself there. Walked past every echoing memory. And then, there he was. Tommy Miller. Alive. But barely tethered. Eyes sunken. Mind frayed. But when Daniel showed him the drawing, the one Lila kept hidden, Tommy stared for a long time. And whispered, "She still draws?" Daniel nodded. Tommy covered his mouth. And cried. The reunion wasn't grand. No media. No flashbulbs. Just a quiet doorbell. And a little girl opening it. Eyes wide. Mouth open. Breath frozen. And then? A run. An armful of tears. A father dropping to his knees. A family broken, yes, but beginning again. Daniel didn't step inside. He stood at the corner. Hands in his coat pockets. Watching. Like he used to. Only this time, there was no glass between them. Just warmth. Real and near. Lila turned. saw him, and smiled. Then held up one coin. One single, shining coin. Daniel smiled back and nodded. For days, she dropped coins into silence. Then one day, the silence whispered back. It was early. The street still yawned. Most windows were dark. But one girl, in her favorite coat and scuffed-up shoes, stood quietly beside a plaque. No coins today. She wasn't there to call someone back. She was there to say thank you. Inside her coat pocket was a drawing. The final one. It showed a sidewalk. A plaque. A man and girl kneeling together, hands touching the stone. Above them, tiny words written in red pencil. Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a person. Lila folded it carefully. Placed it beneath the stone where the plaque met the crack. Then stood. Eyes closed. Arms by her side. Just breathing. Across the street, Daniel watched from a bench. Not behind glass. Not from a distance. Just there. Close enough to understand the weight of that moment. He didn't interrupt. Didn't speak. He just placed something on the bench beside him. A small, wooden box. Inside, every coin she ever dropped. He had collected them all. One by one. Each cleaned, polished, and placed with care. Beside the box, a card. For the girl who taught a man how to listen. Tommy Miller was healing. Not quickly. Not fully. But he was trying. Every day, he walked a little more. Spoke a little louder. Held his daughter a little longer. They had pancakes every Sunday now. It became their new ritual. No more coins. Just syrup. And laughter. And presents. Lila no longer sat alone at recess. Other kids had started asking about her drawings. One girl pointed and said, "Your dad really came back?" Lila just smiled. "He never left," she whispered. "I just had to remind the world where he was." Daniel had changed, too. He didn't speak in percentages anymore. Didn't rush meetings. Didn't live behind deadlines in glass. He started something new. Not a company. A foundation. The Quiet Echo Project. Its mission? To help people listen to the ones the world forgets. Homeless veterans. Missing parents. Lost stories. All the ones who, like Tommy, had just needed a place to stand still and be seen. And the plaque? It stayed. Right there on the sidewalk. Weathered. Brass. A little shinier now. Because people stopped to read it. People paused. And some, just a few, left coins. Not for luck. For memory. For return. For hope. One spring morning, Lila stood at the same spot. Beside her, Tommy knelt, tying her shoe. Daniel stood behind them, holding a cup of cocoa. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Because sometimes healing isn't loud. It's steady. It's small. It's a girl. A man. And a street that once forgot, now choosing to remember. If this story moved you, pause. Take a moment to look around. There may be someone near you dropping coins the world doesn't hear. You don't have to fix everything. Sometimes, just listening is enough. And if you believe in stories that make us feel again, stay with us. Because somewhere, someone still believes. And maybe, you're the one meant to find them. Subscribe for more stories where hearts remember, and strangers become family.